40 miles wide. That is all it is. A thin strip of rock and mud. But this one small piece of land, the Isthmus of Panama, is responsible for the shape of our climate, the animals we eat, the diseases we fight, and the entire course of human civilization. In our timeline, 2.8 million years ago, it rises from the ocean. It connects two continents. It changes everything. In the AXIUM timeline, in this simulation, it never forms. The water never recedes. The Central American Seaway remains open forever. Loading data, tectonic records, ocean currents, fossil databases, human migration patterns, agricultural history, disease vectors, and technological diffusion models. Single variable altered. Isthmus remains submerged. No land connection between the Americas and Eurasia, Africa. All other laws of nature unchanged. Initializing timeline divergence. In our timeline, once the bridge existed, animals moved freely between continents. Horses, bears, deer, and big cats went south into South America. Giant sloths, glyptodons, and armadillos moved north. This massive swap of species is called the Great American Interchange. It balanced ecosystems and gave humans on both sides new resources to build with. In the AXIUM timeline, there is no bridge. No swap takes place. For nearly 3 million years, the two landmasses remain completely isolated, like two separate worlds sharing the same planet. Fast forward to 10,000 BCE, the dawn of agriculture. In Eurasia and Africa, humans domesticated cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, horses, and camels. These were not just food sources, they were the engine of civilization. They pulled plows, hauled heavy cargo, and carried armies across vast distances. In the Americas, not a single one of these species ever arrived. The only large animals humans successfully domesticated were llamas, alpacas, and dogs. History books once claimed this made American civilizations less advanced. But the AXIUM model shows us something far more important. They did not fall behind. They simply took a different path forward. Think about it. Wheels are useless without animals to pull them. So, without horses or oxen, the Americas never developed wheeled transport. But they solved their challenges in ways Eurasian societies never needed to. The Aztec Triple Alliance built floating gardens called chinampas. These artificial islands produced up to 7 harvests every single year. That is 4 times more food per acre than the best farms in medieval Europe. Cities like Tenochtitlan grew larger, cleaner, and better organized than London or Paris. The Inca Empire constructed a road network stretching more than 25,000 miles. They built it without iron tools, without wheels, and without horses, using only stone, rope, and advanced engineering. They suspended bridges across deep gorges and carried fresh water hundreds of miles through gravity-fed aqueducts that still function perfectly today. For tools and weapons, they used obsidian, volcanic glass sharpened to a molecular edge, sharper than surgical steel. And they invented the atlatl, a simple lever that launched spears with twice the speed and range of a human arm alone. The difference even reaches the climate itself. In our timeline, Panama blocks the ocean, creating the Gulf Stream, the current that carries warm water north and keeps Europe mild and fertile. In the AXIUM timeline, there is no Gulf Stream. Northern Europe stays 3 to 5 degrees Celsius colder. Growing seasons are shorter, forests are harder to clear, agriculture spreads more slowly. Eurasia still advances, but under greater limitations. By the year 1400 CE, the gap between the two hemispheres is not a gap of intelligence, it is a gap of resources and environment. And the stage is set for an encounter that will never happen the way we remember it. October 12th, 1492. Christopher Columbus lands in the Caribbean. In our timeline, what followed was one of the most unequal events in history. Within 100 years, roughly 90% of the indigenous population of the Americas died. Not from swords or guns, but from disease. Smallpox, measles, influenza, and typhus. Illnesses that evolved over thousands of years in Eurasia, where humans lived in close contact with cattle, pigs, and sheep. The Americas had no herd animals, so they had no immunity to these sicknesses. Entire empires collapsed before most battles even began. In the AXIUM timeline, here is the critical difference. If there were no herd animals in the Americas, those epidemic diseases never developed there. And when Europeans arrived, there was no biological weapon that could wipe out millions overnight. So when Hernán Cortés marched inland toward Tenochtitlan, he did not find a weakened empire torn apart by plague. He found the Triple Alliance at full strength, 200,000 organized warriors, and a capital city more populous than any in Europe. The Spanish had steel swords and early muskets. But those muskets were slow to load, inaccurate, and prone to jamming in tropical heat and rain. They brought a small number of horses, but breeding and feeding them in large numbers across the ocean was nearly impossible. Against this, obsidian blades cut through gaps in metal armor. Atlatl spears outranged European weapons. The advantage vanished. The AXIUM model calculates a 92% chance of European defeat within just 2 years. The same result applies to Pizarro in Peru, to French explorers in the north, and to Portuguese settlers in the south. The age of conquest ends almost before it begins. What happens next? Europeans do not leave, but they cannot advance. They retreat to the coast, building small, fortified ports in places like Havana, Rio de Janeiro, and Charleston. But beyond 10 or 20 miles inland, they cannot go. Every river valley, every mountain pass, every forest remains under the control of the nations of the Americas. For 300 years, history runs along two completely separate tracks. In Eurasia and Africa, nations like Britain, France, and Spain focus on what they control: the oceans. They build powerful navies and dominate global sea trade. But without access to American land or resources, their growth is slower and their power never becomes truly global. In the Americas, civilizations evolve without outside disruption. Nations trade, form alliances, and improve their systems. Copperworking advances into bronze and eventually into iron production. Communication and road networks expand across thousands of miles. And here is the most surprising outcome. They do not stay behind. They simply invent their own way forward. In our timeline, the Industrial Revolution was powered by coal, steam engines, railways, and the ability to move heavy goods quickly over long distances. In the AXIUM timeline, progress follows a different pattern. In Eurasia, industrialization still happens, but later. The colder climate makes mining more difficult, and shorter growing seasons limit the population needed to support large factories. In the Americas, there's less coal, no railways, and no horses to pull heavy loads. So they turn to what they have in abundance: mountains, rivers, and gravity. By the early 1800s, they use falling water to power mills, hammers, and pumps. They build massive cable systems and suspended transport lines to carry heavy materials across steep terrain. They design tools and machinery built for efficiency and long life, not speed or mass production. It is not the same industrialization we know. It is cleaner, slower, and more stable, but just as capable of building a functioning, modern society. Fast forward to today, the year 2026. What does this separated world look like? First, there's no Panama Canal. The Central American Seaway remains open. Ships traveling between the Atlantic and Pacific sail around Cape Horn. The journey takes longer, but it never becomes a strategic choke point or a reason for war. The Americas remain the most ecologically intact landmass on Earth. 70% of the Amazon rainforest stands untouched. The Great Plains are still covered in native grasses and roamed by millions of bison. Rivers run clean and mountains remain forested. There is no United States, no Canada, no Brazil, and no Argentina as we know them. Instead, the two continents are divided into dozens of sovereign nations, from the Arctic Circle all the way down to Cape Horn, with borders that have remained stable for 500 years. Cities are built on high ground, lake shores, and mountain valleys. Tenochtitlan, rebuilt and expanded, is now a megacity of more than 25 million people. Cusco, high in the Andes, is a global center of engineering, science, and culture. In terms of population, roughly 900 million people live across the Americas. Around 1.9 billion live in Eurasia and Africa. No single nation dominates the globe. Trade flows through neutral coastal ports, and ideas move freely, but the land itself remains divided. It is a world without colonialism, without the massive wealth gap between continents, without the long-lasting conflicts that come from invasion and occupation. Simulation complete. Divergence timestamp 2.8 million years before the Common Era. Root variable, continental isolation. Classification, dual path civilization. We often look at history as a race, a single road with one definition of progress and one goal to reach. But this simulation teaches us something far more profound. There is no one right way for humanity to grow. A strip of rock only 40 miles wide decided which species would meet, which resources would be shared, and which diseases would spread across the globe. If it had never risen from the sea, we would not have a primitive or backward Americas. We would simply have two equal, independent, and completely different definitions of what it means to build a civilization. History is only what actually happened. But here at AXIUM, we explore everything that could have been. If you could change one variable in history, what would it be? Type one word in the comments below. The most repeated choice will become our next simulation. Subscribe, because the greatest mysteries of our world are not found in the past. They are found in the possibilities we never got to see. AXIUM mainframe entering standby. Logging off.